So I'll split the difference. So
It's back on.
I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order on our regular scheduled meeting. And I'm gonna go through it again. I'm gonna let Corinda this time, open this with a word of prayer.
Let us pray. Father, thank you for letting us gather here today. Let us be wise in our choices. Let us follow your guidance and in your wisdom. Thank you for looking out for us to start another year. Please keep your hands of healing on those in our community that need it and your comfort on those who love them. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic that stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty. Check our quorum again.
Yeah, let's do that. So calling the roll for the evening, we'll start with Ms. Bechtold,
Here.
Ms. Cookenbook,
Here.
Mr. Cox,
Here.
Mr. Booth. And we would note that Mr. Booth is participating remotely due to, and he's using one of his medical waivers.
And he is in a secure location, Mr. Booth?
Thank you, ma'am. And he's in a secure location. And now for Mr. Turman.
Yes.
All right, you have a full quorum.
Next would be approval of the agenda. Was Mike be here?
Well, I'll make one addition, and then I believe there's a board member who would like to make an addition. Unfortunately, I did not hear back from our state senator about his availability to Zoom in. It was kind of a last-minute offer. He said he had something in Roanoke, but we tried to get him in, and if he'd like to come another time, I'm sure that the chairman would welcome him. And so that does free up a slot. And my understanding is Mr. Booth has someone that he would like to fill the time slot, just to be clear.
Yes, I would like to add Mr. Mike Massolini, chairman of the PSA, to the 7:15 time slot.
Ready? I'll take a motion to approve with the additional amendment.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Call roll.
All right, on the motion to approve the agenda with two changes. One is removing the Honorable David R. Suderling, our state senator, and replacing him in that slot, Mr. Mike Mazzolini, to discuss some items related to the PSA. Ms. Cookenbook.
Yes.
Ms. Bechtold.
Yes.
Mr. Cox.
Yes.
Mr. Booth.
Yes.
And Mr. Turman.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much.
Next would be the approval of our monthly disbursements. Does anyone have any questions or comments on?
You want to go first or second? Any questions?
Nobody has any questions,
Straightforward.
comments? We'll take a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion second.
All right. On the motion to approve the disbursements as presented, Ms. Bechtold,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Ms. Cookenbook,
Yes.
Mr. Booth,
Yes.
and Mr. Turman.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Next would be approval of the minutes.
And those are the ones from the last meeting. 12-13, thank you.
Take a motion to approve. Ain't no discussion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion second, call roll.
All right. On the motion to approve the minutes from 12/13/2022 as presented.
Well, I'm gonna give Delegate Marsh an extra 7 minutes. That's why she don't have to rush through hers. So, go ahead.
Says. Thank you guys for having me tonight. I appreciate being invited to speak with you. The first thing I wanted to say, if I continue to hold office, I think next year we should do this maybe in August because we pre-filed all of our bills in November. So anything that you guys would have wanted me to take to Richmond, it's a little late to do much with it right now. But I really wanted to come here, maybe go over, your legislative recommendations, and I can comment on each of those, as to what my position is or, the legislation that I'm carrying or did carry last session and how it kind of works with what you guys want for Floyd County. Does that work? If we just kind of go through them one at a time? And that way it gives you all time to speak as well, if you've got things you'd like to add. And it's a pretty extensive list. I just printed this out this morning and started making notes, and I'm like, my goodness, my other counties don't have it together like Floyd County does.
Cut some of them out.
Yeah, we did. Is that right? This is the consolidated list.
Yeah.
It's only 4 pages long. No, but I appreciate it. I actually like to know, where you all stand in writing. Most politicians don't put that anywhere on paper, so it's kind of nice to see, what's meaningful to Floyd. Anyway, I guess we'll just begin so I don't take up, too long because I know we're on an agenda tonight. But so for the funding of state mandated positions, Floyd County requests that the General Assembly meet its full funding obligations for constitutional officers, state mandated positions, and provide flexibility in the use of state funds for compensation of constitutional officers and state supported local employees. I definitely agree with that. I voted for the budget. I don't like a lot of grant funding. I believe in free market, and I try to shy away from a lot of grant funding and things like that. But when I met with Sheriff Brian Craig and I heard about the shortfalls with our law enforcement, I felt like it was very important this past year to fully fund law enforcement. So that's really what weighed the most heavily on my heart when I was in session, and I wanted to make sure that they got plenty of money. And I think that we came through for them in the General Assembly. I don't have those numbers with me tonight, but I think they got a $4,000 to $5,000 pay increase. I don't know who remembers what came through the budget. I believe it was that, and I think it was there was a percentage increase as well. But it basically equivalated our teacher pay to law enforcement pay. And so, you kind of hear from both of those branches a lot. The teachers want more money, law enforcement wants more money. But when you look at the two, it was law enforcement that were lacking. So, and Floyd County was one of the worst. When you looked at Montgomery County, you guys lose, you lose deputies to over there because of how much more they're paying. They have a lot more revenue and meals tax and everything else. So I just felt like coming from Floyd County, being your representative, it was really important that I voted for that budget and that we got as much money as we could for law enforcement. That being said, the big kind of Republican mantra is no more unfunded mandates coming from Richmond. And I wanted to let you know one of the bills that I'm carrying next session is to repeal the Community Policing Act. And I'm looking over at Levi. You may know what I'm talking about because I know that you've been law enforcement. Mr. Turman, Chair, has been law enforcement. But the Community Policing Act actually is, and I met with Sheriff Craig, this is requiring our law enforcement to collect data on everybody that they pull over for a ticket. It's demographic data. And what we didn't realize in Richmond, now I wasn't a part of passing that, but what we didn't realize was it's causing us, one full-time staff member, one full day a month to input the data. Not to mention every time you pull somebody over, the extra time and energy to write it all down and turn it in. And we don't even really know what how useful this data is. It kind of goes to an elaborate website, and it's the media uses it to, go after, Anyway, in my opinion, small counties like Floyd, we just do not have the money. If the state is not going to fund it, they do not need to be passing it. So I'm going to repeal it, or at least try to repeal it. And I don't know what the taste is going to be for this to be repealed. I would say many Democrats won't vote for it. The Republicans probably will all vote for it. So we'll get it through the House and then it won't pass the Senate, would be my guess. But this year, as you guys are aware, everybody's been redistricted. So we're all in brand new districts. So that's going to shake up the landscape of the entire General Assembly. People that were in extremely conservative districts are now in moderate districts. People that were in extremely liberal districts are now in conservative districts. So it could be interesting that we could pick up a couple votes in the Senate. I don't really know how it's going to shake out this session, but we'll know here in the next 2-3 weeks. So some of the people, Senator Edwards in Roanoke is in a contentious race. I believe he'll be in a race with David Suetterline, Senator Suetterline. That could get interesting. It became a little more conservative, but I think it's like a 50-50 split. Yeah. So we're going to really test both of those guys to make sure, they vote how we want them to vote, and see how that shakes out. But yeah, so I had met with Sheriff Craig. I met with Sheriff Kemp, Police Chief Shannon Goad. They all want that Community Policing Act repealed, and that's one of the bills that we just submitted. Down to regional jails, that's second on your list. General Assembly should amend and approve a state budget that will currently and in the future increase the per diems. That didn't really get accomplished this year. I don't believe the jails got really extra money. One thing that I keep hearing from my new district's police chief, which could be Shannon Goad in Carroll County, and I've gotten to be friends with, Galac's Chief Cooper. Yeah, we've got to figure out a way to get more money for the police departments. They're not funded by the localities, they are fully funded by the localities and not by the state whatsoever. So Delegate Will Moorfield was my mentor in the House of Delegates. He's second in line on appropriations. He's been there for 15 years. And we're currently working on a budget amendment to help New River Police Academy to bring them whole. They've got some budget shortfalls where Sheriff Parton pulled his force out and sent them to Cardinal Academy. So we're doing some stuff with the budget to try to help our localities, regional academies, and I'm spearheading that. So I think we're going to be able to really help them. But, that's kind of what you do with the budget. You play with it. You try to get it's kind of a fight for us to get the money back to small localities like Floyd. So I try to have a pretty big voice in Richmond, and I do believe the squeaky wheel gets the grease up there. So I don't kind of sit around. I go straight to folks and tell them this is what we need. I cry all the time how poverty-stricken we are over in Southwest Virginia, and the Democrats feel sorry for us, so they typically vote my way on a lot of stuff. So we did get a lot of stuff pushed through. One of the bills that I brought to you guys last year was that I was going to get localities to start posting their meeting minutes, their approved meeting minutes. And that got passed all the way through the House and the Senate. So that's one of the bills that I got all the way through as a freshman delegate. Most freshman delegates didn't get anything passed. So you can attribute it to me that your staff now has to post those minutes. But truly, in one of my counties in Pulaski, they weren't posting those, and it was a real chore for the citizens to get those. So transparency seemed to be something that was an extremely bipartisan issue. And we're going to do another bill this year to start live streaming. And I'm not sure if Floyd, it appears you guys live stream. Yeah, so I think you guys are not the problem child. Yet again, Pulaski has that issue. So we're going to try to require it to happen. I don't know that it's going to really cost anything extra. I'm sure there'll be some crazy fiscal impact that comes back that says it's going to cost us $50 million, but it shouldn't. I mean, anybody can go to Facebook Live. I'm not sure how you all do it here. Yeah.
If I might, we
Yes.
actually have put pretty significant financial upfront when we started streaming in COVID. I think our initial financial investment was maybe about $1,000 up front with maybe an extra $1,000 a year. And when I was hired on here, switched to a free to stream system, but it still required us to put another, I think we spent all in $1,700 all in, and we get to use that technically forever, but there's a lot of more companies that are streaming now, and it's kind of getting encroached towards free streaming options aren't as common, and they're trying to cut down on how long you can stream for free now. So it definitely becomes a little bit of a financial input, but we've mostly just had upfront costs that we've had to absorb here, and we provide that for the county here.
Well, that's good to have a figure, so I can kind of carry that back to the General Assembly to get this bill passed. I think it's incredibly important that we have transparency and people are able to see from their homes what's going on in all of our meetings. And it's just, I think, and it's bipartisan. I think both Democrats and Republicans can agree, and that's really $1,000, $1,700 in Floyd County is significant money. In Richmond, that is like pennies to those folks. So actually, that gives me a great argument to make that this is so minuscule. Richmond shouldn't blink an eye at this bill passing. I'm not trying to put more hardship on you guys, but you guys are not my problem child. Like I said, you've already got streaming going on. We just need to make sure that all counties are acting in the best interest of taxpayers. In addition,
No, go ahead. I'll go back to something else in just a minute.
Yeah. In addition, we have another bill that we've put in to require an independent audit of the budget when the books close. Again, you all are not the problem child. Pulaski's the problem child. They don't want their books to be looked into. And once we started digging into the code, I'm like, this has got to be code that a budget gets independently audited. And come to find out, there wasn't really specific code. So we're going to turn it into law, hopefully, and I think the Democrats and Republicans will vote for it. We're not trying to create fiscal hardship, but I think all counties probably are being independently audited already, and we're making it we're reducing it to a time frame. And I don't have that bill in front of me to recall what that time frame is. I'm sorry, my brain's a little bit fried, but I believe you've got like 2 years to get it resolved. So it's plenty of time. It's not 30 days. It's not something crazy.
I can interject something. Excuse me, right back on this regional jail thing.
Yes.
That bill that I sent you, SB 581, that definitely needs to be killed.
It's going to get killed.
Good, because
It is.
it's going to
It's
cost us a couple $1 million at
Yeah.
the jail if you do.
It's
And the
done.
taxpayers, they have to pick it up.
That can go nowhere.
And also on their per diems, we had to raise the per diem this year. So far we haven't really had to use them, but we had to raise them because Richmond reneged on some money. Yeah. So they need to up their, I think they pay us $12 a month for keeping their inmates. I think they need to up that.
Yeah.
It costs more than that. I mean, that's been $12 ever since I've been on the board, and that's been, I don't know, 11 years, something like that.
And if you all need carve outs specific to Floyd, that's why we need this meeting to be in like August. Because if there's something that I need to go up there and fix and make you whole on something, every other delegate is doing that for their district. We're like the only people, that are not running up there, and they call them Christmas tree ornaments that they always say we don't like to vote and do special budget amendments for Christmas tree ornaments. I don't know what that means exactly. I guess special little things to hang on the tree, but they all do it. So, just keep in mind, there's a lot we can do, and I'm more than happy to do it. We've got a lot to go, so I'll kind of quickly. The equal tax authority, counties should be granted same authority that cities and towns currently enjoy to enact local taxes. I totally agree with that. I would support any legislation implementation of Medicaid expansion. I'm not big on Medicaid expansion, I'm not going to lie. If a bill came through having to do with Medicaid expansion, I would probably vote against it. A lot of Republicans got run out of their seats in Richmond when they voted for Medicaid expansion. But I do believe, that you go on to say full state funding should be provided for the local costs. I do agree with that. So if it has to do with, state mandated, then the state needs to make you guys whole. Let's see here. Economic development planning. Floyd County supports continued federal and state funding and technical assistance for infrastructure investments, economic development programs, and support for the operations of the Virginia Economic Development Partnership as effective means for enhancing business development in the Commonwealth. Yes. We definitely want economic development. Truck access. Floyd County requests assistance for improved truck access in and around the town of Floyd, particularly to the Floyd County Commerce Park. Improved access is also requested from both Interstates 81. That could have been a good one that I could have gone to Richmond with if I had kind of known to be working on that. So if I continue to get elected, let's look at that one in August and see if there's something we can do for a carve out to,
Well, I'll tell you, that's not going away. So you keep that on the radar, because that has been something that we've talked about for the last 7 years I've been here, and I know Joe's probably heard it for the last 11. So
Yeah, I've been harping on it
Yeah.
since I've been on the board.
well, I've gotten to know David Clark really well. I call David a lot. He is always like, "Hey, Marie." I'm like, "Hey, David, we've got another VDOT issue and we need your help with." And he's very helpful. I don't know where all the funding goes. It seems like Salem is always the excuse that, we can't quite get it from Salem, but he has been helpful when we have an emergency signal situation coming out of the new fire department in Montgomery County. They're going to put some flashing signs out. If it's a small ask, you can get it done. We're getting a guardrail on 460 where there was a fatality on 460. So we've had a lot of success. I mean, David, when I call him, he follows through. He does a very good job. So, I have to say, he's a hard worker. He does great. I still would like to know where all this money is that VDOT's getting funded and why it doesn't feel like it's trickling down to the roads. So, but I do make every phone call, every single constituent that calls me and has a road issue and I hear from the supervisors. I know I've talked to Jerry Booth several times, quite a few times about VDOT issues, and I follow up on all those calls, and David assures me he's working on it.
is Jerry there?
Jerry, you still with us?
Oh, yeah.
Just making sure.
Good at this point for helping out on Route 8 as much as she has. We still got a lot to do, but we're not giving up.
I know we want to make Route 8 straight.
All the way.
I know that will happen in my lifetime. But we can just keep working on it. And, if I continue to get elected, the way it kind of works is, I'm on some pretty good committees right now. I got put on cities, counties, and towns, health, wellness, and institutions, and the public safety committee. If I were to continue to get elected, at some point, they're going to have to put me on appropriations. And so when you get on appropriations, that's how you kind of get all the goodies to come back to your district. That's just how it works. And, anyway, so that's what I would be going for if I continue. Affordable and workforce housing. Floyd County supports maintaining federal and state funding and appropriate incentives to assist localities in fostering affordable housing. I agree with that. I definitely am of the opinion that money needs to go through the EDA or some manner to be privatized to make sure that we're, it goes to our citizens, and it gets moved around and not just to one family. And so that's kind of been one of my initiatives Delegate Moorfield helped me to get on the Cultural Heritage Foundation board. And that's an important board. It's over Friends of Southwest, Crooked Road, a lot of the organizations that grants flow through the Tobacco Commission and go to those organizations. But what I quickly found out in my very first meeting when I started asking questions is a lot of the grant funding is getting scooped up by the people that are on, like, say, Crooked Road. The board of directors is scarfing up all the grants and they're not getting disseminated to everybody else in the community. So I'm trying to put forth an initiative in the Cultural Heritage Board for us to put some real accountability into place to make sure that those boards of directors are not just sitting on these boards to self-fund themselves the grant money, but they're on those boards for a benevolent reason to make sure that money is getting out to all kinds of different people, to offer all kinds of different people opportunities to grow their business, to grow their organization. Let's see. Regional Planning Commission, state funding for Virginia's planning commission should be maintained due to the important role these organizations play in fostering opportunities for regional cooperation and providing critical resources and technical assistance to localities. I'd actually like to hear from you all. Do you think that this works well?
Yes, the regional commissions, especially in the New River Valley. The New River Valley Regional Commission has been instrumental in helping Floyd to address some issues with rehabilitation of houses and getting folks in situations where their houses were pretty sad, and fixing them and getting them in better shape. They're instrumental in a lot of ways for us to receive guidance with state funding for transportation issues. And it's a really, like you were saying, you just wonder what is going on with VDOT. And I know, I'm surprised Mr. Booth didn't say anything, but a JLARC study I'm sure he's told you that, but a JLARC study of VDOT would be very important, I think, for the citizens of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
I think I mentioned that to her about a year ago.
I bet you did. I'm sure you did.
I didn't know what the acronym even stood for. I'm very familiar with JLARC now, and that, going into next session, I would be just the person to carry a bill for a JLARC study. I can tell you it would shock nobody for me to carry that bill up to Richmond.
And our regional commission is just there to help our economic development offices here. It's and our county administration. It's just a very valuable resource, especially in our regions. Maybe in bigger places they may not hold as much importance, but for us it's a lifeline. It really, really is. So we would heartily want to see that support continue from Richmond. It's not going into some hole to just pay somebody's salary. I mean, it's working. Everybody on the regional commission works really, really hard for the counties part of the counties you represent.
Some of my concerns, if you don't mind me saying, coming from a small business perspective, I was involved in the noise ordinance disputes over in Christiansburg, and the regional commission was giving advice about how great decimal meters were, and they were like causing Christiansburg to pay into a lot of money that I thought was just superfluous. And, I don't know, I was just really surprised that they would even weigh in. And then, I think there was a situation here too. Well, the situation with Mr. David Whitaker on the town council, I believe the regional commission has even weighed in about the sign ordinances. They've given guidance, which the sign ordinance in Floyd, the town, ended up being unconstitutional.
Right.
So I just want to make sure that our money, whoever are the attorneys that are giving that guidance in our regional commission, they're not wasting our money and our time and our valuable resources that's our budget, because we are small. Floyd has to squeeze those pennies. And so every time, and I've been kind of watching, that lawsuit with Mr. Whitaker, and it's just seemed like such a waste. $6,000, $8,000, whatever it is, that's a ton of money to a little town. And so, you know, I feel like some of the guidance, and you all need to hold their feet to the fire, that their guidance is prudent, you know? So I just wanted to bring those to your attention tonight, because that's been my dismay with a couple things that I've seen come out of the Regional Commission.
Well, if I may, I've been associated with our regional commissions since '92, and yes, sometimes they do come up with some wild ideas, but they have been instrumental in where we're at today compared to where we were in '92. In that they've helped us with other ordinances, not just transportation, but the key factor is in the end, what's adopted or what advice the local governments take, that's the local government's responsibility. Right. And I've butted heads with poor Mr. David Runyon and a little bit with Kevin Bird through the years, and we've not come down on the same side of things. But in an overall perspective, they've been a great asset for our county. I can't speak for Montgomery or the others; they can speak for themselves, but they've been a great asset to us in trying to keep moving our county forward, not going backwards. So I just wanted to interject that.
We definitely don't want to go backwards. Okay, so education, I'm going to try to keep on rolling quick. Education funding. The Virginia General Assembly should fully fund the cost of public education, including standards of quality, teacher salaries, required support staff and functions, as well as capital maintenance costs. I definitely voted for the budget. I wanted the teachers to get their pay increases. You know, I really wanted law enforcement to get theirs. But I'm also carrying a school choice bill for this session. So in addition to school choice, I carried the Tim Tebow bill last session, and it got through the House, almost passed the Senate. We lost by 1 vote. There's a very good chance I'm going to get it through the Senate this year, because with the redistricting, it's shaking some people up, and I think we've got the votes now. What the Tim Tebow bill will do will allow homeschool kids and private school kids to play public school sports. What I did intentionally, knowing that I wanted to carry a school choice bill, was we left it open to the local school board to decide if they wanted to do it. They don't have to do it. They can do it. They can just determine how they do it, and they can charge money to do it. So that being said, if school choice were to pass, the school board can determine that it costs fees for kids to come and play on their facilities. That'll help them recoup some of the money from any students that are taken out of the school system. So this can actually help our schools, and I kind of pitched this to the school board. You know, they look at it as a bad thing, and I'm like, no, this is a really great thing. Because if you can charge money for your facilities, you can recoup some of the cost of what's been taken away with the school choice voucher program. And not only that, you get kids to come participate in school programs, band, sports, whatever. Those kids then play with all the kids in the school system, and before you know it, they're telling their mom and dad, I want to go back to the public school with all my friends. So it is a way for the kids to maybe come back to those schools, but it's also a way for parents of homeschool and private school kids, for their kids to be parts of those programs. So it's an equal opportunity situation.
Well, I'll add at this point, I've been saying this for years, and it's always fell on deaf ears, but I've always thought that the school should pay the teachers' salaries, and then each locality pay a cost of living addition. I mean, it goes without saying, cost of living in Fairfax County is way higher than it is in Lee County. And get the teachers where they're on an equal salary, then any difference in it is where they choose to teach. I understand what you were saying about that bill, and I don't disagree with it, but back into related to teachers' salaries, if you look across the state, there's such a vast difference in starting salaries to all the way up to 30-year salaries. And if the state could step in and set a statewide salary and then each locality do a cost of living addition, then you've equalized those salaries more than anything else I've heard proposed.
That's an interesting idea. What
You're
I'm
the
trying
first
to
one
do,
I've heard say that out of Richmond. So
it is. Well, what I'm trying to do with the school choice,
somebody write it on the calendar for
what I'm trying to do with the school choice bill is get the state to come up with an average of what their, it's costing per child, because it's going to be high thanks to Fairfax and Loudoun, and then we'll get all that extra money in Southwest Virginia. So I'm actually trying to do a little bit of the flip side of that, which is get as much money as we can down here.
and I'm talking about teacher salary.
I do. I understand what you're saying. Yeah,
Not support salary.
I understand that. Yes.
And I don't mean this ugly, but all across the state, the school systems say we have to have more money for teacher salaries. Then when they get more money for teacher salaries, then they do a 2% across the board salary increase. And I'm not saying the other supporting staff doesn't deserve the increase, but it seems like they take a portion of what's intended for the teachers, and when it is addressed, and it goes to support staff. And I know support staff's very important, but I don't think there's a school board across the state that hasn't approached the Board of Supervisors that we need more money for teacher salaries. And then when they get the money, it ends up being dispersed all the way across the board. And then there's a big difference in a 2% increase of a $39,000 teacher than there is a $180,000 school superintendent. So, I don't know how far y'all want to get into that, because that's getting into the local stuff a little more than Richmond likes to, but I think if truly address the teacher salaries, then it needs to be earmarked for teacher salaries.
And I'll need to sit down, between now and next August. I'd like to sit down with you guys that know the budget inside and out and really pick it apart with what you guys are paying, what your expectations are, because different localities are doing it just a little bit differently, and there's different amounts of money, going into it. So I want to make sure that we meet in August of next year, so I can make sure I've got my brain around it. And I'll quickly just check off teacher pension liability, funding for public libraries, critical thinking skills, year-end funds, workforce ready students. I mean, all of that is in the budget. We do fund trade schools. I'm all for it. I think it's great what we've got going on in Floyd. I think we need to get our kids trained in high school as quick as possible and get them developed into the workforce as quick as possible. So I'm all for that. Moving right along, did anybody want to comment about education before we move to environmental and agriculture? Stormwater regulations. This is a problem. I definitely agree communities should continue to be allowed to opt out of managing any mandated stormwater management permit regulations. I'm all about deregulating. We've got a big problem in Southwest Virginia, and it's the DEQ. The DEQ is charging huge amounts of money for permits, and in small localities like Floyd, Carroll County, rural areas, where 0.8 of an acre sells for $20,000 and the DEQ wants $60,000 for a permit to do grading, that's a big problem. And it's going to cause our entire Southwest Virginia economy and growth and building and all. Anyway, I hosted a group of contractors that came up to Richmond in the middle of session. We met with Michael Rollband, the DEQ director. We told him all of our concerns. We are trying to figure out, he was supposed to be rewriting the stormwater regulations and the phosphorus content, Chesapeake Bay watershed. All of that's supposed to be getting rewritten. They've assigned a new committee. It's supposed to be getting fixed, but it's like a 2-year plan. But he is well aware we want a tiered approach over here in Southwest Virginia to lower those fees that DEQ is charging contractors. And, we've got to get some relief, or else there'll be no new construction, there'll be no low-income housing. All of these problems are culminating because of the DEQ. you all probably know plenty of contractors and you've heard all of this before. But Michael Rolban, I mean, he did promise us they're working on it, so we'll see. If they don't, by next session, I will do a study group, just like I'm going to do with JLARC. We'll be doing that on the DEQ. So, and I've already made that threat to him verbally that don't make me. So, but we may have to. Don't make me. Yep. Recycling, Floyd County supports development of additional efforts by the state to develop markets for recycled materials. Okay, this is really exciting to me. I went on a tour of Pepsi Amcor over in Wytheville, and Pepsi is now being mandated that they use 100% recycled material to go into California, Vermont, and a couple of states. They desperately need recycled material. We've got a producer converter named Mike Phillips that extrudes PET, polyethylene terephthalate. So we're working on a project. It probably won't land in Floyd because we need to hit the interstate for distribution purposes, but it could keep a whole lot of PET out of the landfills. So we're working on a project right now. I'm going to go to the state to try to find some funding for that probably next session. So it's good stuff, and it could come with maybe some money attached to it. And Floyd would be the perfect area to do sorting mechanisms, to do something to keep some of that, because Floyd citizens already largely contribute to recycling. I mean, I know it's we're kind of looked at as a hippie group, up in Richmond. They kind of think, oh my gosh, that's Floyd Fest people. You all recycle and you go green and all that. So I think we'd be the perfect pilot program for something like that. So I am cooking that up behind the scenes. Virginia Cooperative Extension, Floyd County recommends state funding necessary to support the programs and services provided by the Cooperative Extension Service. Yes. Floyd County supports funding for and complete implementation of the Virginia Invasive Species Management Plan. Yes. Farm Bureau would not endorse me if I said no to that one. Okay, unfunded mandates in general government. I did go over that. Anything, and if you guys see something out there that's slipping through the cracks that you have figured out is an unfunded mandate, I mean, I'm here to tell you, legislators don't always catch everything. We have, I think, 4,000 bills that we have to read, and you're constantly reading, and your eyes kind of cross and glaze over. So there's little unaffected, unintended consequences of some of these bills. And if you guys happen to hear of something or whatever, please reach out to me and say, Marie, make sure this doesn't happen. So we caught a couple of them. I have a lady that's a session aide for me that helps me read my bills and helps make sure that I stay on track and I don't, mess anything up. And we've caught a couple situations that could have been unfunded mandates. So we bring it up in caucus. And it's interesting because as a freshman delegate, I went up there thinking that all these people that have been up there 15, 20 years have it all figured out. And I just sort of thought, well, they're going to know everything. They're going to know how to write all this legislation. And you get up there and they have no clue. They haven't read the bills, So it was me piping up. I didn't even realize I was so nerdy, and I'm the one piping up, bringing it to people's attention that I think this could result in an unfunded mandate. And they're like, good job, freshman. And I mean, and that's how simple it is that this stuff can accidentally pass through and become your problem. So I just implore you to pay attention to emails. I'm sure you guys read all your emails and everything, but if you see something that's slipping through, let me know so I can alert the caucus.
Well, in association with that, maybe even a bigger problem is when the state diverts money from one program to another program. And then by doing that, they created a hole in the program they moved the money from that we have to fill that hole. I'll give you an example. Years ago, we got all this, we got like $90,000 of new computer equipment. Oh, everybody's well and happy. We found out they took $60,000 from an existing program, put it with 30 new thousand, said they had $90 new thousand for computers. and we had to cover the local 60, out of local tax money. So it's not just the flat out unfunded mandates, it's the whole circle of cycle that we have to watch for.
And there doesn't seem to be any qualifications for being on appropriations. Most of those people have never done a budget. They've never owned a business. It has been mind-blowing, who is on appropriations in Richmond. And it's rather scary.
I'm not surprised from what I've seen through the years of that committee. I'm not surprised at what you just said.
If you want to, we'll let Mike
Yeah.
finish his. Because on our board time, we got legislative discussion.
Okay.
And you can finish up. then.
Okay, sounds
All right,
great. See you shortly.
Come on, Mike.
I have a little handout for you. So thank you for letting me come at the last minute, kind of fill you in on what happened over Christmas. We're calling it the Christmas Water Miracle, not because Santa Claus had anything to do with it, but because of the fact that we almost had to shut down the whole water supply to the PSA on Christmas Day. So it was an interesting kind of perfect storm of events that we really don't want to have happen again, but I thought it was important for us to document it and then walk through it a little bit so that you understood, and then we can, go forward from there. So I kind of laid it out so that it's kind of a little situational drama. Forgive me for doing that, but I thought it'd be a little bit more interesting to read. So the situation was, we had record temperatures, record winds. We had everything last weekend, and it took its toll around the region, as I'm sure you've heard from a lot of different people. So with respect to what happened to the PSA, the single-digit temperatures and very high winds started Friday afternoon on the 23rd of December, okay? There were broken pipes reported over the weekend at Carillion, Farmer Supply, Junebug Center, Floyd Center for the Arts, Milestones, Citizens, and several homes on Saturday. Pardon me? Oh, yeah, that's right, the direct part. I left it out. Thank you. Carillion actually had 40,000 gallons fill up their facility before they turned off the water. Farmers Supply, we dumped 65,000 gallons down there at the rate of 350 gallons an hour before we got them to fix their leaks. But these are user-generated issues. Luckily, it wasn't a massive pipe break or a main break like other cities and localities have all around the South. I mean, we initially thought it was a main break and we were scrambling all over town trying to find water coming out. But part of the problem was when you have single-digit temperatures, the water freezes so fast it doesn't rise to the ground, so you can't see it. And the ice on top of the ground will actually trap the water underneath it. And so it's very, very difficult to find water that's leaking when it is so cold. So the high school tank on Christmas Eve and Christmas morning was sitting at 31 feet. 40 feet is full tank. And it was draining faster than we were able to replenish it all Christmas Eve and Christmas morning. We lost 90,000 gallons within 24 hours with all the wells running except well 6. And as you know, well 6 is our highest producing well, but it was down because it had a controller issue 2 weeks before where water had saturated the controller boards and fried them. We had a new controller on order, which was due to be installed 3 days after Christmas. He was not. He was not helping. So we had this situation where water was draining out of the tank. Well 6 was totally down. We spent Christmas afternoon trying to hotwire well 6 to get it to run, and the breaker box that was in there, we had, ended up with an electrical problem where the circuit breaker was not working correctly, which was ended up being part of the problem. And of course, on Christmas Day, you cannot get anything anywhere. And in fact, you can't get anything the day after Christmas either. So, you know, there's 2-day kind of issue there, but especially when Christmas falls on a weekend, it makes it a disaster for everybody. So well 5, because of the freezing weather, the wellhead was frozen because the well comes out of the ground, and it had a doghouse over it, which normally, you know, helps protect it. Of course, with the 50-mile-an-hour winds, the doghouse blew off and was across the field, and it totally froze the wellhead on well 5, and it sheared a 1-inch steel flange, which was the power on a 3-inch pipe. Sheared it in half. Unbelievable, the force of freezing water. So trying to find a flange, you know, on Christmas Day or the day after again was a real challenge. Luckily, the people that we got out on emergency, the pump people that we got out on emergency call on Christmas had a flange back at their shop, and we got that on Monday, the day after Christmas, and we were able to fix well 5. But still, during that time, the Christmas Eve situation, we only had 4 of our 6 wells working, and that's hence the issue with the tank draining fall. And also, by the way, we're at 31 feet. If the tank gets to 28 feet, the toilets at the high school and all the schools don't flush. So you can see that if luckily, we had no school students in, but, you know, the problems just start compounding from there. And if the pressure gets below 20 psi in the system, the state and feds have imposed guidelines for us that we have to follow before we can reinstitute full pressure. So there's a whole litany of things when you start talking about potable water that when they happen, you got to be very careful. And that's the reasons why we might have had to just shut off the tank, and everybody would have, you know, we've all been in a little bit of trouble on Christmas Day. All our other wells, of course, were running continuous duty. They're not designed for that. They're typically 50% duty cycle, but we ran them for 4 days straight out because we didn't have a choice. On top of that, for some reason, our remote read, new remote read meter reader radio was out, and we couldn't go around and read the meters to find out which users had broken pipes, because if we could, then we were prepared to start turning off their water, because we felt like they didn't even know about it because nobody was at work, nobody was around. And luckily 2 days later, there was a software update to the radio that it started working again. So we didn't know if it was a software problem. Again, support for the radio. January 3rd, when you call them up to ask for support, you know, call us back after the new year. So all these things happening during the holiday are something. And then, of course, the emergency notification network. We tried to put out an emergency notice to everybody, and nobody knew how to run it. So my wife says, it's great we had an emergency notification network. The real emergency was nobody knew how to run it. So it was kind of a thing for us. We wanted to put out a call for people to report, first of all broken pipes to us immediately so that we could identify where water was leaking and we could get over there and shut it all off. And then second of all, to ask them to start to conserve water wherever you can. Don't think about, you know, washing your car or doing anything extraneous, maybe even, you know, hold off on washing clothes or something like that. But every bit of water helps when you get down to just so much water left in the tank. So that was the situation. It was kind of a perfect storm, like I said, a little bit of a mess, but luckily we had some good luck. So the miracle happened next, and luckily enough broken pipes got fixed to stabilize the tank at 32 feet on Christmas Day. This was that afternoon. We watched as the tank was falling, and then luckily it's stabilized. And what we can figure is that Carillion found their leak and fixed that, because that was a big one. It was an open 2-inch water line, as you can imagine, putting out a whole lot of water. And several other people found their leaks. We knew of one lady that had 8 inches of water in her basement, so turned that into a swimming pool for a while. And as you know, getting water out of a basement is not a fun thing to do. Luckily, the Storker's Knob tank, although it was draining initially too, because it automatically drains into our system when the high school tank starts dropping its level, it started filling back up, and we were using it to backfill on Monday, our main tank. Again, we still didn't have all the pumps running, so we were still stabilizing on our water usage. We called around to all the top 20 businesses and people that we knew, asking them to conserve or not use water if at all possible. We did find a flange for well 5, and we got that back online Monday afternoon, the day after Christmas. Again, on that Monday and Tuesday, more broken pipes got found, and we isolated them too. We actually got our radio began working on Tuesday. We went around, found a couple of leaks. That's when we found Farmer's Supply, and we turned them off, and several other people. And then to cap it all off, the pump people got in on Friday, luckily on well 6, and we got the new controller installed, and we could fill up the tank again. So interesting times, kind of a scramble. But, a lot of things can be learned from this lesson, too. We were very lucky, and so some of the takeaways is, we need to reestablish the emergency notification network, especially when single-digit temperatures are expected, kind of a freeze warning. And we're trying to talk about at the PSA, putting together these pre-canned emergency notices for different things so that we can just identify quickly what notice needs to be sent out. And we should probably do it on a more regular basis. It'll give us more practice in using the network, which I think would be good for everybody. And it'll also raise the awareness for everybody to, start paying attention. We don't get single digits around here often. And when we do, and especially coupled with the wind, it's really disastrous, as we have experienced here. So we're also thinking about in our PSA mailings that we're going to put out preventative winterization notices early in the season to everybody. Again, raising the awareness of everybody. Some things that we can do on the hardware side, maybe get a second radio for the second truck. They're about $10,000, so we've held off on that because it's the first one that we have is relatively new. Also, we're thinking about weatherizing our wells, which means take the well heads underground. We have that in well 6, but not in any of the other wells. Unfortunately, we'll have to dig up, the wells and the cost and expense of rerunning those well heads underground. But it would, take away the need for those dog houses, which are at best, minor help, especially if they get blown away in the wind. And the other thing is it's time to start thinking about digging another well and having another backup besides well 6, because it puts out as much as all the other wells together, but when it's down, then we're on kind of a tiptoe kind of situation. And as you know now, even though well 6 is up, it's still pumping impurities into our system, so we're only trying to use it at a 10% rate. And until we get the filters put on it to clean it up, it's really limiting the water capacity of our overall system. So we need to think about probably another well, and that's probably about a $100,000 deal right there. So anyway, guys, it was all good news. Linda helped a lot, and so did everybody involved, and we really appreciate all that help. And I think we missed a big one. But I think, again, the takeaway here is that we should all learn about this, kind of fix the things that didn't work and kind of get ready for it again, because we still got a lot of winter to go and a lot of cold temperatures.
Not important, but right off the top of your head, how much water does each one of them produce per minute?
Each what?
Each well?
Well, they all vary, and that's the problem. As you know, in Floyd County, we don't have an aquifer. Everybody's pulling out of every pocket that they can find. Well 6, our biggest producing well, will pull 160 gallons a minute. It's a big guy.
That's a geyser.
The other guys, well 5 will only do 15 to 30. Well 1 will do like 60. Well 2 and 3 are just, kind of 15 to 20. So it just depends on what we hit and how much we can, and the quality of the water that we get out of it when we hit it too. So all told, our capacity is about 270,000 gallons a day. We normally run between 100 and, 120 and 130,000 gallons a day just in normal usage, which gives us a good margin, except the fact that, I'm sorry, well 6 is down, and we can only use it 10% of the time. So, I think we're restricting, we sent a letter to the EDA restricting our thing. Oh, thank you very much. Restricting our usage right now to about 170,000 gallons a day, which doesn't give them a lot of margin.
This is, Chairman, this is so important that Delegate March is here to hear this. This is the real story about Floyd County's Public Service Authority and the fact that it doesn't just serve the town of Floyd, it serves our county businesses, our commerce park. If we were to pull in new industry, it's restrictive. And I know you had mentioned about grants, but one of the things that the PSA is really looking hard at is the state has a number of infrastructure grants that are out there. And we have been doggedly trying to put in every single, we got so many shovel-ready projects that if we could just get some money, and we still haven't heard anything on any of them.
Right.
And, we are ready to go with improving, a new well will cost us, what, 50,000 to drill?
Well, 50 to
About that,
100,
50
depending
to
upon
100.
where we're located, because we're going to have to pipe it back into our system. And that's
So,
the issue.
so well 6 is located in a really prime location, but it hit, manganese and
Sulfur.
sulfur and 160 gallons of water. Yes, we can try to treat it, and that's one of the things that the PSA asked for ARPA funds to be used for, but they have their issues, and it's just really hard. Now, could we just drop down 100 feet and do it again, or go to the top of the hill and drill? I don't know. But these are needs. This is infrastructure needs that the county has as well as the town, and it affects our economic development. And yeah, it's real. So I'm glad. I hate to hear about this. My weather post stated to people to be careful. The other perfect storm that you didn't mention was that the power failed as well.
Oh, that's right.
And so it was this, not even a perfect storm. It was a catastrophe that the power in town went out, and then we had these temperatures, and then we had the wind, and it
It was a mess.
it was a mess.
I'd like to thank Mike. I think
Yeah.
we all should.
Yeah, absolutely.
He came here for my holiday back there with us, trying to sort through all this, and I just want you to know I appreciate that,
Yeah,
Mike.
same here, Mike.
And the other thing for Delegate March, a lot of these grants out there, most of the money goes for new construction, where it's extending lines and that sort of stuff. And that's a necessary part of it. But in our instance, the majority of our system is like 70 years old. We need funding and grant funding for replacement. And one area we're running into trouble with the Department of Transportation, you knew I couldn't leave them out of it. They don't want us to replace our lines where they're at in the roadway now. We put a new water line down Oxford Street there by the building you're in. They wouldn't let us replace it under the street where it was at. We had to obtain new right of way and get it totally out of the street. Yet here, Richmond approves Facebook, and they just go anywhere they want to.
Yeah.
And so there's another area that J. Lark studied, but I think the point I want to make at this point is that a lot of localities are especially in Southwest Virginia, are in the same boat we are. We need replacement grant money, not money for as much new construction as we do to replace what we have in place.
Right.
We can still put in budget amendments right now. So I was already sitting there when I heard the 100,000. I can run up to Delegate Moorfield tomorrow morning and call him and say, hey, we're putting in 96,000 for New River Justice Academy. Let's slide in 100,000 and see if we can get it really quick for our water supply. It doesn't get more critical than
No.
that in
Right.
Floyd County. So I'm happy to do it. It's already on my agenda to make that call. And one thing you didn't mention, all the text messages that the liquor store power was out. Because my phone was getting blown up. You guys, they're like, the liquor store's closed. Now what?
What do you have to say about that, Jerry?
Really mad at Floyd County.
Can't have water, let's at least have liquor.
They're gonna start firing up the stills next.
Where Route 40 could have been blocked. So.
May I ask Mike one question?
Sure.
So just out of curiosity, your emergency notification network, is that your own or is that tied into 911? Okay, that's what I was asking. Wondered. Thank you.
That's why
Right.
everybody will get it.
Right.
And but it's not just, not everybody in the county, we can drill it down so that you have addresses, and if we can't drill it down, then we need to figure out how to do it properly. But, it's important that people, so somebody went away for the Christmas holiday, and they didn't know their power was going to go out. And they didn't know that they should turn off their water. And they didn't know that they should have, figured out a way to bar any kind of wind damage they could have had. They could have come home to busted pipes. And that could have been countywide. So something to the entire county with that kind of prep stuff is not a bad thing. The only problem with using an emergency management phone system is if you do it too often, then it no longer carries the weight of an emergency system. You only have to ask the federal government about the emergency broadcast system. And so, and any time you say emergency, this obviously was an emergency. This was a weather emergency that we did not know was going to affect the town's power and part of the county. There were people out of power all over the place. I will say to anybody in the audience that may be watching, you got to turn off your water before you leave your house for any extended period of time. That's just a good idea. Anyway.
If I might, so the particular system that they're talking about is generally run by emergency management. When it was put in about 5-6 years ago, I think Mr. Chairman remember, at that time there were several people that were trained. Unfortunately, all but 2 of those are no longer employed by the county. One of which was out of town, and the other one had never actually used it and was only trained once 6 years ago. So they really didn't feel like they could jump right in and take care of that. But having said that, there are also, with that particular system, there are some limitations based on the grant that was used to procure it. So we need to go back and maybe clarify a little bit and double check what we're allowed to use it for and what we're not. There's some of those things that we probably could and some things that we may not be able to. So just wanted to let you all know. But we did, Mike and I did talk quite a bit, and the sheriff and I talked a bit, and so we kind of decided kind of jointly to keep the message to, if you have a broken pipe or you think they're frozen, call the PSA, as opposed to, hey, we might be running out of water, because
And
we
we
all
did
know
use
what
social
we would
media.
do.
And we did
use
use social media and.
Yeah, we did. We went to the Floyd group and did some things like that, but we did try to keep it focused, because I know the first thing I would want to do is go fill my bathtub, which is the last thing that Mike wanted me to
Right.
do. So,
Thank you.
You might,
Mike,
Just real quick, I just wanted to say thank you. I mean, the dedication you show on that PSA is really, really incredible.
it really is.
How much money have you?
Condense it to a well, so it sounds that we're in the most, not sounds like dire straits. We are in dire straits, but it needs to really be a desperate.
To fix well 6.
Yeah.
Those are the two things.
The green sand for
are you
6.
standing up? You
Pardon
can
me?
make sure.
No, I'll do it in my house.
I'll give you board time.
Thank you, Mike.
I'm gonna try to move much more quickly because that didn't go as quick as I had anticipated. And I don't usually brainstorm in public because it lands me in the newspaper. But I did have an idea when we were talking about emergency management. You know, Floyd was kind of notorious for having the militia that formed over here. And I always kind of had this dream that militia could evolve into, some other counties have done search and rescue, or they've also done things like this. Like they're a standby volunteer community that can be coordinated, I guess, with the sheriff's office. I don't know if any of those discussions ever got had, but it sure would be good to see if we could reunite that initiative, because I'm sure he would love to have a standby group of people that are already trained on how, and they're willing to help. I mean, and that's kind of what I saw, that militia was a group of people that wanted to be involved in the community. So I don't know how to spearhead that. I hate to brainstorm publicly, but it just kept floating into my mind when he was speaking.
It's fine. Don't use the term militia when you try to get it started. Yeah.
Is that,
But,
is that bad?
because when you talk to Brian on that part, it opens up a whole different can of worms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure a policy would be
Yeah.
good that you said.
So, but you know, a citizens committee,
A citizens committee.
right, yeah, that formed to do this stuff.
I feel like they would be very helpful.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure he could use the extra manpower. Okay, so I guess we were on election costs.
Yeah.
Floyd County supports legislation that would decrease costs of elections to localities. I definitely agree with that. I was hoping my primary would be Firehouse, that would be run by the party, versus a state-run primary that's now going to cost the taxpayers. But my opponent wanted it to cost the taxpayers, just so you know. But I'm all for making sure we're made whole with cost to the registrar's office, et cetera. I am carrying a bill for election integrity. It started as a very simple bill, and it became extremely complex. We ended up calling Amy on the phone, chasing down all kinds of avenues. Bob Smith, who's on the electoral board, ended up blowing my mind with, there's a driver's privilege card that's being issued to people that are not citizens, and it mimics a driver's license. It is absolutely identical to a driver's license. So this one, what I thought was going to be a simple election integrity bill, now has like 26 points that we've had to dive into, and we've had to rewrite some of the way the DMV issues whatever. But I don't know if it'll pass or not. I think it'll pass out of the House because Republicans are definitely going to pass election integrity initiatives. Democrats, I don't know. I mean, it depends on if I'm dialing back some of instead of having an election season, we're going to go back to having absentee voting with military. It's not going to be this whole 6 to 8 week time period. And I can't remember what we dialed it back to. I didn't bring it with me. I'm sorry. I should have been more prepared, but I just wanted to touch on that we do have an election integrity bill. It should not cost the localities any more money than what they're currently. We do allow electronic tabulation machines, but we do not allow those machines to be online in any capacity to communicate with any outside sources.
I will say
That's the problem.
I will say, I attend almost every electoral board meeting because I think as a supervisor, it's important to know how our elections are run. And our electoral board and registrar do an amazing job of all the right things. And for a small county like ours, Mr. Massolini, Mr. Smith, Ms. Howell will be on it now. Breck Avalar is on it. It's just amazing how a bipartisan group of people can work together to make Floyd County have one of the most amazing electoral systems in the state of Virginia, in my opinion. And it really comes down to just giving us the money to do it properly. That's all we ask. I mean, election integrity obviously is important, and I don't diminish that at all, but we just need, it kind of is like an unfunded mandate, but not really, but it actually is, yeah.
My real goal in carrying this is to force the cities to call in their results at the same time that the counties are calling them in. So there's little things in my bill that I'm trying to force to happen, because whether there's elections being stolen or it's just perceived, we need to fix it. And we need to give people voter confidence. So, I assumed leadership would be carrying all kinds of election integrity bills. There's not many, and Sam Rasool is trying to make the voting age start at like 15 or 16, whereas I want to make sure it doesn't start till we're 18, and we kind of, are full-fledged adults. So I don't think it's going to cost anything extra, but it is going to put heat on the cities, which they expect that coming from a delegate from Floyd County. Okay, so volunteer rescue fire departments. Floyd recognizes the importance of rescue and fire training, in practical education and training requirements that discourage volunteer service to local communities should be reviewed and potentially eliminated. I agree with that. If anything comes across my desk that deregulates, I always vote for it. I did carry a bill last year that was a little against my whole grant funding persona. I carried a bill for free hunting and fishing licenses for rescue and fire department volunteers because I thought it'd be a good way to entice more people to want to volunteer, because in Floyd County, getting the lifetime hunting and fishing privileges is really expensive to a lot of people and they can't afford to pay for it. That bill didn't go anywhere. It was killed immediately in the Ag Committee. And I think the fiscal impact, they came up with something like $150 billion was what it was going to cost the state. So, and then the funny part in Richmond, they don't tell you the fiscal impact until you're walking into the committee to talk about your bill. But meanwhile, all the bureaucrats know what they've already drummed it up, and they're sitting there waiting on you to come in so they can share the fiscal impact. So that was one thing I had to learn about Richmond, is you're not given all your cards when you walk into your committee to present. They like to hand it to you when you're walking in the door. I don't think that bill would go anywhere if I tried to carry it again. I think it's a great idea. I think people would love it. It would maybe entice more people to get involved, but the state's not going to do it. As far as 911, Floyd County Freedom of Information Act, I did impose additional burdens on localities because I did require the posting of meeting minutes. Sorry, guys, but I didn't think it was detrimental or real cost prohibitive, so I felt like it was a good thing. Floyd supporting legislation to update, modify requirements for newspaper advertising for public notices, public procurement, legislation to give localities option to use electronic or other forms of notification as an alternative to newspaper advertising. That would have been a good bill. I would have carried that. I mean, that's something that I need to carry next year. So that's another one. It would probably pass because it would actually it would save you guys money. So next August,
It's just not even about money.
Yes, this August.
Yeah, this August.
if I win, I've got to get elected,
Oh, yeah,
but
right.
yes.
But it's important because you want to get it out to the most people efficiently. And it's just noted that a lot of folks aren't reading a newspaper anymore, and they're getting them online. And yes, sometimes the newspaper will run them online, but it's just
When
it's
you
just
have
hard.
Just a paper that's locally published only once a week, it's really hard to get our notices in
Right.
with the time and,
That seems like a simple
right?
statute code change. I mean, I definitely would carry that. That's very easy. I can't get it in now because it's too late to turn it in, but I'll definitely do it next year.
Localities add into the paper in a timely fashion for their deadlines. And for some reason, then the paper doesn't run it, it really creates a problem. And that has happened to us.
I think that electronic method is the way to go because that could be very easy and quick and save you.
And not saying that we wouldn't publish, but that we should be given a choice to use.
I agree. You know, and that's kind of my thoughts with technology. I had a conversation with Supervisor Bechtold, you know, even about funding of libraries. Technology's kind of changed and left the libraries behind, and that's something we're having to really deal with in the General Assembly. You know, do you keep fully funding something that's not really self-sustaining? And I don't know what the future is going to be with that because younger people go to their phones for their data. You know, they go to Google and search engines, and, you know, I don't know what the future, to all of us in this room, libraries are very nostalgic, and it's how we were all raised. I mean, I remember being taught the Dewey Decimal System.
Yeah.
You know, kids nowadays probably don't even know what that is or how to use it. Maybe they do, I don't know.
Our libraries, though, in the Montgomery Floyd Regional Library System are
If they do cursive, then
Yeah.
doubt.
our libraries in both Christiansburg, Elliston, Blacksburg, and Floyd are all very well attended. I mean, our numbers are still up. It becomes a place for people to go. Some people still don't have computers. It's a resource for sure. So it's important.
I just know it's a struggle. That's one of the ones that comes to mind when you talk about technology and changing technologies. That one's a tough one right now. I don't know what the future is going to be. And that coupled with, I had a constituent in my office 2 weeks ago that there was a very, very filthy book in the Christiansburg Floyd Library. And he brought me the book that his underage daughter went in and checked out, and he wanted me to flip through it. And I about did a backflip when I started looking at what was in this book. I mean, that's something else I'd like to address. You know, how are these books slipping through the cracks, you know, for our kids to get their hands on? Because, I mean, I've got pictures on my phone. I showed it to my parents at Christmas. And my mother, we've even played Cards Against Humanity with my family, and they could not even handle looking at these pictures that was in our kids' library. And it's the Floyd, Montgomery County Library. So our name is attached to it, even though it was checked out over in Montgomery County. So I'm not sure who we need to talk to or who needs to be involved, but I did want to bring that to your all's attention. I can show you the pictures if you have the stomach for it.
Actually, you can email me the name of the book.
Okay, that sounds great. Okay.
And they can actually put a complaint in to the branch where the book was put out, and it'll go before the library's board.
Well, I kind of have had these rose-colored glasses on. When I go to Richmond, I tell everybody that Floyd is this special place and we don't really have all the problems that everyone else has. But then when I see books like that, I'm like, ugh. So it's bad. And I'll send you the book for sure. Okay. Floyd supports qualified immunity. I support qualified immunity. You don't have to worry about that. Floyd County requests that the General Assembly be mindful of the Second Amendment. Yeah, last session I carried the repeal of red flag gun confiscation laws. It passed the House. It just about passed the Senate. It was just found this week, 2 days ago, that red flag laws are unconstitutional in New York. I don't know if you guys have seen that. So it'll be probably sooner than later, the states will all start probably getting rid of their red flag laws. In addition, I'm carrying constitutional carry this year. The reason I'm carrying that, and if you're not familiar with it, it no longer would require a concealed permit for you to go and register to get your permit. You still go through a process when you buy a gun. That's a different process. That's at the retailer when you purchase a weapon, a gun. A firearm, I'm sorry. Let me get my verbiage correct. Constitutional carry, really the feeling behind it is you don't have to pay to go to church on Sunday to practice your First Amendment right. Why do you have to pay to practice your Second Amendment right to go get a permit through your locality? It will cost us some money if that gets passed. I think 28 other states have passed it. It may be more than that by now. It is passing across the United States. So there's a good chance that we're going to get some movement. It should go through the House. And, with the new districts, it may very well pass in the Senate. So just so you know, that would be a great gain for our Second Amendment right and our freedoms in America. Okay, crisis services. All right, I'm going to kind of wrap these up into the mental health crisis. Sam Rasool, over in the House of Delegates, he's over in the Roanoke, Salem area. He carried a bill for the Catawba Hospital to be revamped into a 400-bed mental health facility, substance abuse and mental health facility. I believe the bill passed, and I voted for it, but now it needs to be funded. And he's telling us it's going to be like $200 million. Now, that is a lot of money in Richmond. I don't know. I do believe the governor's initiatives are to help find funding. I do agree. They waste so much money in Richmond that I would much rather see that money go to a project like this in our area so we're not, carrying people out to the coast to put them in beds. I mean, I think this would be a huge help for our area. 400 beds would be very good. So I'm going to vote for it. I don't vote for a lot of big money items, especially Democrat bills, and Sam's a Democrat. But I do like him, and I think his heart's in the right place on some things, not on the voter age. But we will vote for that and try to help law enforcement and have those beds, because I know it's a crisis over here. And as far as Aging Long-Term Care Comprehensive Services Act, let's see here, long-term aging. We haven't really had any bills. Floyd County supports efforts that allow seniors to remain at home in a safe and secure environment. We urge the General Assembly to provide sufficient funding for companion services, in-home services, and home-delivered meals. I don't know that anything came through my Health, Wellness, and Institutions Committee that I had to vote on that would have brought in more funding or anything for that scenario. We did have a bill that came through to liquidize human remains that I voted against. They wanted to, there's the strangest things you can imagine come through over there, and there's always some lobbyist group behind it that it's going to save an industry money or whatever. But I literally stood up in caucus and I'm like, they want to pour people down the drain. I'm like, there's no way I can vote for that. And so the whole caucus ended up going with me on that vote. Once they realized, no one knew what that even was. It was like acid hydrolysis or something of human remains. So you would be shocked at what comes through up there. It's crazy.
I think more or less that is like Agency on Aging, Meals on Wheels, some of those other programs to expand those and give, because so many folks, I mean, I know, Dr. March, you're very well and familiar with all the work that Skyline is doing, and, you know, hats off to you too for all of your dedication and services over there. But so many of our folks do want to remain at home, so anything that can be done in that area, especially here in Floyd.
And on that committee on the health, wellness, and institutions, I typically vote to deregulate. So if it means, you know, one of the big pushes this year is they want, you know, more quotas for how many staff, you know, at the nursing home per patient. Well, you can't find help. You can't find people to work. So what does that mean? That means that there's people that are not going to get taken care of, that are going to be in even worse situations. So I typically weigh, why is the government getting more involved, you know, in this? And I typically, you know, fall on the side of deregulating. And I understand there's two sides to that argument. You know, I do. I mean, my husband and I stay really upset at the quality of food that's at the nursing homes. You know, should the government force, you know, a percentage that's dedicated to good food and nutrition at these facilities? I mean, I don't like to impose legislation and government oversight, but I don't know. I mean, it's when you go somewhere and the nutrition is that bad, you know, they spend the very bare minimum on nutrition, and it's sad. So, yeah. Anyway, moving along, Comprehensive Services Act. Okay, and then Mount Rogers. So did I hear earlier, Mr. Chairman, are you now on the Mount Rogers board?
Yeah, no, workforce development.
The workforce development,
Yeah.
Okay. The Mount Rogers Mental Health, we're not in that over
that's
here.
different.
That's Grayson, Carroll. Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because there's some issues going on over there that I needed to discuss. But, all
Need to
right.
talk to Jerry on that one.
At some later date.
Okay. Department of Social Services, the state should provide additional funding to meet increased workload of local departments of social services. You know, the budget vote is up or down. I typically, if there's a pet situation like it was with law enforcement, I voted for the budget. I mean, so far, I think, you know, Yunkin has done pretty good at dispersing money. We had a surplus. It's getting, you know, given out. People got tax rebates. I mean, as much as we can, you know, give out all the money, I mean, that makes me, I'm going to vote for that. So we'll just have to see. I don't know what the budget looks like this year.
Yeah, that's another trouble finding or keeping work. Of course, these localities already spent it. Excuse me. And we were in competition with Montgomery and Roanoke. Well, Floyd County can't pay what Montgomery and Roanoke pays. And so that's another area that needs to be looked into, equalizing that pay structure.
Do you know what the difference is?
Not right off the top of my head, no.
I can look into this. I can't do it this session. It's too late.
Along with these supporting the BOS facility, we need more like that. I recently found out that there's been some people turned away from certain facilities because they tested positive for COVID and then they wouldn't admit them. And that's created problems for law enforcement big time. So I don't know how we get around that on these individual run or non-state run facilities, but I've said it before, we need to entertain bringing these companies in here that provide these services for mental health and other, that provide beds. We need to turn our attention to that, just like we are business and industry and under economic development.
I will tell you too, I was involved in a project at the last minute where the training center in Carroll County was being sold to the methadone clinic that was coming in. And the Board of Supervisors did come up to Richmond from Carroll to kind of plead their case because the state owned the property at the time. And myself and Delegate Moorfield ran to the governor's office to try to stop the sale. A last minute, let's stop the sale, let's all sit back, figure this out. See, because Carroll County doesn't have zoning and there's not a whole lot they could do. And so I was told, from some people in the governor's office that the sale, was going to get stopped. And then a few days later, it went through. And there were some contributions made to certain campaigns. And that was my first big dose of how Richmond really works. And they all lied to my face. So just to let you know, though, I had the back of of course, they're not even my district yet. That's my new district is Carroll County, but I was fighting for them up there. And I did everything, I thought we had it nailed down. And they all played their little games. So that does go on up there. And I'm not a proponent for zoning. I'm sorry, guys.
I'm not either.
Yeah, because I've seen it used in a bureaucratic way to go after businesses, and zoning is a double-edged sword. And so, but it would have helped them in Carroll County. They could have done something, yeah. But I've seen it weaponized too, and it can be bad. But I'm not going to get into that conversation because that's not my problem.
Put that over off the issue.
And I'm going to try to get through this, guys. I'm sorry it's taken so long. Right to life, I'm carrying a life at conception bill that's probably going to get me spit on and everything else. That seems to drive people crazy, but I believe that our constituents here in Floyd County, they elected me to do a job, and they are pro-life in this district. And so I would rather carry the right-wing version of a pro-life bill and try to push the envelope to the right because, in my opinion, I'm a Republican conservative. We've had a lot of left-leaning legislation that's come through. So it's time for us to step up and support our rural Southwest Virginia voters. That's what they want. So you can count on me for that. Transportation. Jerry, would you like to, this is a lot of stuff, and I know David Clark is probably,
Oh, he's heard most of this.
I'm sure.
He's heard it all.
Yeah.
Is there anything blaring that I need? I think that well would be a big deal if we could get it, and you can't go to the well too many times. Pardon the pun. So I probably need to take them one thing to try to get that money.
Well, under the transportation, I think right at the moment, top of the list is that roads of regional significance at number one.
Route 8.
And getting that designated to Route 8 and 221, there's the very top.
That might spur the straightening, because there just doesn't have to be any more lives lost on that section of Route 8. It's tragic. It's
On Route 8, actually, in Montgomery County, we're going a little bit behind some of the stuff that we think is important here. That number 2 there really hits it right on the head.
because so many people are caught in the traffic that occurs from an accident or not even a loss of life, but just 4 or 5 hours and
book back to the line. A lot of their workers come out of Floyd County. I see anything wrong, y'all, the rest of you jump in, but I think out of that whole list, that's definitely the top two. That and if there's anything you can do to help get the authority and discretion back to the resident engineer like David and get it out of the hands of Salem and Richmond, it would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah.
I think that's a major problem we have with most of the stuff we're wanting to get done, at least on Route 8 and 221. Is that they've taken, the state level, VDOT and Salem has taken that authority away from those resident engineers. At one point in time, local resident engineer could set the speed limit on the road.
Yeah.
Now they go through all this rigmarole and all this other stuff, and then they involve engineers out of Salem, and it's just like a crosswalk we've got here in town that they put in recently, and they're getting ready to put the flashing lights up on. Well, David got into the specifics of it, and he had to just basically rework the whole thing because some engineer in Salem had decided how it should be, and that didn't fit Floyd County.
Well, one of my first meetings was when the Secretary of Transportation came in my office. I can't remember who it is, and I didn't know anybody up there. And I just remember like chewing him out and telling him, our roads are a disaster. Richmond's roads look way better. Where's the money going? And why are there these cutesy flashing signs that say, T-Rex, buckle up? There's all this rigmarole instead of just fixing the roads. And so, I kind of lit him up, and he never came back to my office. And the governor, I now have a liaison. I have a handler from the governor's office that calls to check in to make sure I'm not mad about anything. So,
Went to somewhere was the person I was going to. I know the head of the transportation department in Salem was wanting to have a conversation with me. He's yet to set it up, but I look forward to it. I'm sure Salem will know my name, and I guess Richmond will know your name.
I believe Salem already knows your name, Jerry.
and I'm always happy to go to those meetings too, because I'll help put the heat on them too. I mean, if they don't get the memo from one of us, it never hurts to have a couple of us. The only thing I'm going to end with is one thing that I haven't told you about. I have put in a bill for property taxes. In Montgomery County, we have a group of accountants that have come to me. Their commissioner of revenue is going after business personal property taxes indefinitely. So they gave me an example that a stapler that costs $10, by the time it's taxed over 250 years, it's cost you hundreds and hundreds of dollars because there's no end date on how long they can tax these items. What we did is we wrote a bill, and this was specifically for Montgomery County. I don't think this is going on in Floyd. I think this is Montgomery County trying to squeeze every penny they can get because, their budget's not big enough. But we wrote a bill to link the business property tax schedule to the IRS, federal schedules, depreciation schedules, to a 5 and 10 year depreciation schedule. This could have some unintended consequences. There may be, I doubt it for Floyd because you guys have a small business base. I don't think it's going to be a big deal. But in Montgomery County, they're squeezing stuff to be billed. A chair that you're sitting in is going to be taxed for forever, for perpetuity. And it doesn't matter if you can prove that it came from a yard sale or it's got tears or cuts or whatever in it. They don't care. They're taxing it at basically a new rate at whatever they deem. And so the businesses are furious. The accountants are furious. Anyway, so that's one of our bills we're carrying. But then I was going to leave on a good note, sort of good. I do have a bill called Virginia is for Fireworks. And what that is to bring the good fireworks back to Virginia. So for years, you know, some of us that love fireworks are having to drive to Tennessee and West Virginia and South Carolina and North Carolina to get the contraband fireworks that are the good ones that go way up in the air and they explode. And yes, I guess there could be some safety problems with this, and it could put more strife on fire and rescue. However, people are already driving to go pay the taxes to get them. And it's already the same people that are going to drive over there to get them are the same people that are going to buy them in our own community. So this is going to bring a 12% fireworks tax to our state, our Commonwealth, that can be used to fund law enforcement, fire departments, rescue, and we're gonna do a whole carve out to bring in. And we think, I have a friend. He's the mayor of Hillsville, Greg Crowder, Mayor Crowder. He owns fireworks booths in West Virginia. They charge I can't remember if he said 13 to 18% tax, but one booth of his is doing $100,000 in 2 or 3 days. I have a feeling this is going to be a significant amount of revenue to come back to the state. I think it's to the tune of tens of millions of dollars, maybe more. So that could be a little bit of hope that we could have some more money coming back. I probably should have done something more with that tax to be locality specific, that the locality keeps X amount. I could probably offer a friendly amendment to it. Matter of fact, I don't know that we've submitted this one. This is one of the ones we've held out to get it just right. We can still submit to do something for the locality specific. I don't know what percentage you guys would want. What do you get currently from state taxes? I know on meals and sales tax, you get 5.3, you get 1% of the 5.3. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So I don't know what percentage to put in there, but the sky's the limit because we're inventing this right now. So we could just throw a number in there that could go to locality specific. You want me to say 5%?
The tax rate that high, yeah.
I mean, you might as well. We ought to see what we can do. This bill may or may not pass, but
Try.
you never know till you try. Exactly. And we, you know, rural localities need revenue streams, so it could be very helpful to us. So that was my kind of, I don't like increasing taxes in any capacity, but I look at fireworks as being recreational, and you don't have to go buy them, and they're fun. And I believe that the towns and counties and cities and municipalities are having to buy their fireworks out of the state. So I don't know. I've heard that. If you get the good ones, I don't know that it's legal to buy them. I don't know. I don't know
why they fight that so hard if it's for fire and rescue and for law enforcement.
I'm trying
Because
to neutralize those guys to not speak against it.
that would really help us when we go to buy a fire truck or an
If
ambulance
the
or something like that.
5% was dedicated to
Right,
those
so that's-
funds.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is that group of funds called? Is it just called
Well, it's capital, it's capital fire
Capital.
rescue.
Capital Fire Rescue?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we did with our meals tax.
And I probably want to leave it open to law enforcement too, so you
Yeah.
guys have
You need
room to do whatever you
rescue
want to
and-
do
and
with
law
it.
enforcement. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah,
capital,
so, yeah, public safety, capital expense, public safety.
public safety.
Just like the TOTS tax goes to
Right,
tourism.
right.
The fireworks tax could go to public safety.
That's perfect. Well, we will get that written.
Does it need to be capital?
Date. Filing deadline. It's, state statute 3019.3, the first 2.A1 and 2. It is the third Monday, of July in an odd year, when that is.
When that begins. Yeah, we can start pre-filing in July. And it ends usually in November, it seems to.
In November.
Yeah.
That's. That way you'll know, that's the last day she has to pre-file a bill, she can pre-file a bill.
And I'm going to stick my notes in a file. So if I win this next election, we'll pull this back out and we can even do, well, you guys can't do you have to do a public meeting. I was going to say, we could just sit down and go over these. I could go over them with one person on the board and we can figure out what I need to get a bill in. So I'm happy to do that.
Okay,
Thank you all.
thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Safe travels up to Richmond.
And safe travels home.
Yeah, and safe travels home.
Tell them we said hey.
Righty, so. Guess that moves us up to our or does the board have anything to say? You got an
I was,
extra pen?
Mr. Chairman, if I can, I was just going to say, if you could thank
Tore mine
the
out.
sanitation. I seen that they put down, or Mark, whoever, but I seen they did put some gravel down at some of the dumpster sites, so thank you.
Yes, thank you.
My boss. I'll pick him up.
See you tomorrow. Ready.
Appreciate that about the solid waste guys. Appreciate
Yeah.
it. Thank you. I'll tell them.
That was helpful. Alrighty, I'll go ahead and open the floor for public comment. It is the intent that all persons attending the meeting of the board, regardless of handicap and conditions, shall have an opportunity to participate. If any person present requires any special assistance, please let the board know in order that arrangements can be made. When you come forward, state your name, district you're from, and limit your comments to 4 minutes. And you have to be signed up to speak.
So, Mr. Chair, you have one person signed up, Ms. Kristen Vest from Czech, and this is not directed at you necessarily, but if I might, for personal privilege, if you all would do your best to enunciate and speak into the microphone, it helps us immensely when we're trying to, we'll fix that. I understand completely. It helps us a lot.
Pronunciation and everything causes Kim a lot of heartache.
Yes. Yeah, it's the most challenging part
It
of
is.
the minute, so thank
It
you.
is.
I
The
appreciate
big
it.
thing when you're trying to get somebody who's singing in church who's not familiar with a microphone, it's like you have to hold it just a certain way. So, Happy New Year, everybody. Kirsten Vest, Locust Grove District. Just a couple of quick things. You're going, yeah, right. I don't have a paper up here, so it's good. So I had asked Ms. Chido earlier about the minutes as an attachment, and you said that we couldn't do that till after a meeting, and I understand that. So I was just going to offer a right, and I get that. I know the one time that you did publish them, we caught some things, and I guess that's what we were looking for. So just maybe a suggestion that if you had a copy that was even out there, that we could just come a few minutes early and look over before, just to see if we catch anything. Just a little suggestion.
They could read over them, but just leave them here.
Right, no, we wouldn't
Approved.
take them anywhere, because I get that if they're not approved, you don't want them out in the public and being circulated. So, just a suggestion. And the other thing is, about the 6 PM meeting time. I'm a little disappointed at that. Actually, I'm a lot disappointed. I'm blessed right now that I work in Floyd. I work from home. It's not a problem for me to get here at 6. It is a problem for all the people that work out of the county if they want to come to get here by 6 o'clock. And they either have to take time off, they have to hope they don't get caught in the traffic that is perpetual on 81 South in particular. So if at some point you could reconsider that, maybe even move it to 6:30. I get the late nights. We're here too. I know you don't want to stay out that late. But please reconsider, maybe even move until 6:30, just something to accommodate those who can't get here by 7. It's one reason my husband is not here tonight, because he just couldn't get here from work. So anyway, that's it. Nothing fancy. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone signed up? No correspondence? All righty, I'll just close the public comment period then. So next is our old business, and we need to go into closed session under 2.23711A3, 2.23708.A6. If you want to fill in the necessary.
Okay. So this would be to go into closed session about two items. First, under closed session under 2.23711A3, and that relates to real estate acquisition. Discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for a public purpose or of the disposition of a publicly held real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body. And B, the Board of Supervisors closed session, 2.23711A6, contract selection. And I will note this is something we pulled forward from the previous meeting, that we were not as prepared as we had hoped to be by that time. We got some more information. So now we're more able to talk to you about contract selection. And that is under discussion or consideration of the investment of public funds where competition or bargaining is involved, where if made public initially, the financial interest of the governing unit would be adversely affected.
Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, call the roll.
Right, on the motion to go into closed session under 2.23711A3, real estate acquisition, and 2.23711A6, contract selection. Ms. Bechtel?
Yes.
Ms. Cookenbook?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Booth? Thank you. And Mr. Terman?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
And-
Move to closed session.
There you go. All right, I'll take a motion to come out of closed session.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Call the roll.
Okay. On the motion to come out of closed session, Ms. Cookenbook,
Yes.
Ms. Bechtel,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mr. Booth,
Yeah.
and Mr. Terman.
Yes. I'll take a motion or a certification motion that we only talked about those things we went into closed session for.
So moved.
So moved.
Got two. We
Double
got
move.
you second, Jerry.
All right.
Call the roll.
On the motion to certify that when we were in closed session, we only talked about the things that we were supposed to talk about in closed session, Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mr. Booth, Ms. Bechtel,
Yes.
Ms. Cookenbook,
Yes.
and Mr. Terman. All right. Yeah, good.
Now, somebody got a motion to make?
I need to add a statement that while I was remote, I was in a secure location.
Without any recording devices.
That's correct.
So I think that moves us, Mr. Chair, to item 11C, approval of contract for county administration financial software purchase.
I'll make that motion for approval of contract with appropriate signatures.
Anybody want a second? Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Call roll.
Okay, and I think I'm supposed to mention the company in the, okay. So, on the motion to, move forward with Tyler Munis, to begin negotiations for a final contract for county administration financial software, and to authorize at the completion appropriate signatures. With that, Ms. Bechtel?
Yes.
Mr. Booth?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Ms. Cookenbook?
Yes.
And Mr. Terman.
Yes.
All right, well, we will move forward and contact Tyler Munis tomorrow and hopefully start closing that agreement. So thank you all.
Just like to thank everyone. It's been a long time coming.
It's still gonna be a lot longer. Greatest journey started with one step, Jerry. All righty.
All right, I think we're down to just me and running through your correspondence and adjournment. So, and I do have one thing that I'll add at the top of my report, which is for any of you who've been to the courthouse, you will know that it's chilly. So we have had the boiler that is in the courthouse is ailing mightily. We've had some folks in to look at it, and the odds are fairly slim that it will be cost effective, possible, much less not cost effective, to fix it. The boiler is 22 years old. And so we're trying to look pretty quickly for what some of our alternatives are. So we've been talking to the company that put that one in. And it's something that's more updated. We also have contacted Johnson Controls because they're the ones who have the contract for the chiller on the roof to see if there's some way to maybe use their expertise and expand that. And we're also calling some of the local folks that do heating and air to see what other possibilities there might be for the building. But for now, there are a lot of space heaters running over there, and we are pretty much maxed out on how much current we can be running through there. If we plug in one more in the courtroom, we're going to have a problem. So just want folks to know we are also looking, because all of those options will probably take some time. We have folks looking for a temporary some heater to be able to hook in. And Mark actually spoke to the lead judge today about kind of where this is, what we're doing, and wanted to make sure he would be okay with the temporary heater because it would be behind his office and be loud. And so he just was very appreciative to be kept in the loop and know we were moving forward. That seems to be the theme. As long as we're moving forward, he's okay with most things. So that's kind of the bad news for the night, but figure out how to let everybody know. And the courthouse, the folks that are still in the courthouse have been very kind about it. Everybody's got ones from previous things and brought them in from home. I have 4 of them from my house over there. So
Well, that's about the computer smaller, 20 to 22 to 23 years. So,
yep, exactly, Mr. Booth. So that's kind of where we are on that. So hopefully we'll have a lot more information to share with you all over the next couple weeks and with the public at the next meeting and with the folks, of course, that work in the courthouse. But we've alerted them to what's going on, and they're supposed to let us know if it gets too cold. We'll see what else we can do. Moving now to the things that I said I was going to talk about, animal control. We had a really good meeting today with myself and John Vest from Extension, Ag Extension, and also Chase Vaughn and Dale Marshall to talk about our cow saga. And the possibility of how we would structure things if we have to do this again, which might be a possibility. And so really appreciate Mr. Vest took all the paperwork and bills and everything back with him, and he's going to help us work through what kind of makes sense out of all that. And then we'll look at what our options will be at that time. And in terms of going forward, both myself and animal control have come to an understanding that we would all very much like to have a contract next time that's very clear and likely will be based on a specific rate per animal, per day, or per week, something along that line. And the amount would be potentially recommended by the folks at Virginia Tech and Mr. Vest. So it's a kind of a true third party. And we will be, yes, ma'am?
Would that kind of be in a template form? Like on a computer so that if this were to happen again, you could easily not recreate the wheel, I guess, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
we would be able to do that, and as part of this, ma'am, what we're going, in anticipation of this being an issue, either with cows, but it could also be with other
Horses,
things, or
whatever.
whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Goats.
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and, put together, again, with John's help, we're gonna try to get in next week's paper, something for folks to express interest in being on an on-call contract. So we could put in the paper if you have interest in potentially, not necessarily committing, but so you would be on the list that we would call, or Chase would likely call you, and say, you would have interest, and if it was cows or whatever, and the ad will include what the services would have to be provided. But, and it would say that we would do this at a rate that's so much, again, per animal, per allotted time, but not say what that amount is, because of course it would change depending what the animal was and even what time of the year it is. So that's kind of what our hope is going forward. And I really appreciate all the folks sitting here for 2.5 hours today trying to dig through all that. And also thanks to Jenny, who actually took all the receipts and went through all of it and totaled it up and then did a lot of research about what all those things actually were. And that's all in the packet.
Right. Good job.
Me and Dr. Millsap talked about, and I like her idea about the booklet. Yeah. I told her that we need whoever keeps the next animals, whatever they are. She hands them a booklet. It's got contract in there, a copy of the contract.
Right.
It's got sheets in there where that I spent this much at this place for this item. And they have to give us, if they keep them more than a month, give us updates each month on what it's already cost.
Right.
Yes,
can
and
I,
that's
can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Can we, as the board, require the contract with these people be in place prior to the animal control taking the animals?
I certainly think that is currently their intention, Mr. Booth. For the most part, that should be possible. There might be some occasions that it's so dire they need to move, but
Right.
even at that point, I think they'll go ahead and alert us in advance.
Okay.
Is kind of think our understanding.
I feel like what they'll do is if they see they don't see some animals, they already get a home for them before they ever sees it.
Some foster
Yeah.
care.
And then they can give them the contracts and everything. Yeah.
Yes, and we also talked about a timeline, which the chairman and I had, it was his idea, about, the animal control would go out on a pretty much weekly basis just to make sure, count and see how they look, or they look like they're doing okay, that kind of thing, and then probably meet with a person that's watching over them maybe every other week to kind of get an update of what's going on, and then, as the chairman just said, then monthly, we would be getting bills from them, but with all the, so we wouldn't end up, what happened in this case is we were getting kind of regular bills, and then when they got out of court, all of a sudden, there was another big pile of bills that was multiple times more than previous. And
Well, that was one thing I was going to bring up, was to make sure that we had, as part of the contract, them agreeing to allow visitation to the site. I think that's a must so that they can view the animals.
Yeah.
Well,
And count the animals
yeah,
yeah,
without getting into too much, but definitely keep a count of them. And I think there needs to be some kind of clause in it too, that if for some reason an animal passes or they have to be put down, then they have to immediately contact animal control or our office or somebody.
I think also that whoever from animal control looks at the animals, that Dr. Millsap go with them. She can buy her some mock boots.
I got some. I
I mean,
got them as soon as you hired me.
yeah. Her or me one. I think somebody from this board should be with them when they go look at them.
yep.
Well, yeah, because one person, one-on-one, but if you got more than one person actually witnessing what's going on, then you're in better shape.
Yeah. But that's good. And I will tell you, it just to add to all that, one of the things Mr. Vest really encouraged us to include as well is making sure that we select someone who has the ability to move them between pieces of property. Yes, and that did not occur in this case apparently, and that's part of what caused some of the challenges. So have the ability and will do it to actually move them. So.
I wish they would, if they've got their own animals, they would have big enough piece of property to segregate them and not commingle ours with
Yeah.
theirs. I think that may have happened a little bit here too.
It's a little difficult. If they take control of a herd that is not tagged where they can record tags, then maybe we should tag them.
25 tags, $29.95,
That's a good cheap at any price.
and they already pre-numbered.
But you see where I'm going with it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I know it adds to expense, but it could save you some problems down the road. And even if we do purchase tags, I know we could get some oddball color. You don't see too many pink tags on cows and calves or whatever. But, just thought.
Okay.
We could get blank tags and just put FC.
Whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
With that with that permanent ink marker,
The ink marker you have to buy them separate, but you don't want to get them on your hands because you marked for a while. So, So, you get blank tags and get that pen, you just put FC on 'em. So,
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. So we'll see. Hopefully we'll have good story there eventually. Parks and Recreation, Jacob continues to be very pleased with his new hire. And so I think all that's working well and is allowing him some time to do a little bit more kind of planning and thinking strategically, which he hasn't really had the opportunity to do a lot. So one of the things I'm just I'll mention to y'all, and then I'll send you some emails later to follow up, but he did ask me to mention that he would have some interest in potentially having kind of an advisory group of interested folks in the community. Not that they would make any decisions, but maybe could be folks that he could go to who are parents or other folks that have, some of the names he'd suggested were like Daniel Quisenberry, Jenny Leary's the one who came and talked about the parks, Allie Mackin, some other folks, Mr. Beal. Some folks that might be good to kind of help with that and offer a little bit additional insight and expertise to what he's suggesting. So we'll start floating about how you might like to have input in that or structure that or whatever.
I think it'd be good to have the community input.
Okay. And then related to that, he's also starting to do some data analysis and try to work with Ladina to get more data sets to get a better idea about kind of how we compare to other similar sized communities, and given our age and demographics, what are the parks and recreation type activities that might make the most sense. And I think I mentioned to you at the last meeting, he's been specifically working more towards doing more things with seniors. And so some of the other surrounding counties have been really helpful about suggesting things that might work. But I think
Don't
that's
forget
okay.
Look, I don't mention it at least once every meeting, so.
He beat you to it.
Good. EMS billing, of course, I mentioned before, Myra has now moved on to retirement, so Jenny's actually been taking over the part of the job that has to be done here, but we of course are moving to AIM to do all that, and so Kim and I and Jenny have had conversations with the vendor. We'll actually move the process to them January 16th. And then between Jenny and Dustin, primary job will be quality control. So making sure there's signatures and those kind of things. When we talked to those folks, we were very diligent about a lot of what we're looking for in addition to billing is training for our staff to make sure that we are billing appropriately, but also all the companies and the way that we can best maximize income for the county. So we're excited about that. In terms of EMS, we did roll out the Are You Gonna Hang With Us bonuses? And not surprisingly, every one of our existing full-time staff took a bonus for committing to stay 2 years. So thank you for ponying up that, and they were very excited, and not just about the money, which of course was exciting, but and the fact that Kim managed to roll it out at Christmas was very helpful. But they really did want us to share with you. The money makes a big difference, but the fact that you made such an effort to recognize them and what they mean to the community, despite the fact that we have a pretty tight budget. It was important to them, so they want to make sure we told you that.
Did the pay raises include part-time?
We did hourly pay raises a while ago that included part-time. What this was is primarily a one-time signing bonus,
Right.
or signing or re-signing bonus.
Yeah.
We do have some. We're going to be increasing some of the hourly rates for the folks that are at the top, because the gap between the folks that have the least certifications and the most monetarily is not huge. So what we really need, given how rural we are, is we need more paramedics and advanced folks. So that's where we put a little bit more in. But yeah, originally, but several months ago, there was an increase for time. We did not offer any kind of stay with us bonus to part-time.
Part-time.
Right. Next is our audit update. So we're still waiting on our audit. They keep telling us they have one more major thing they're working on with us. But in addition to that, they have started also rolling out some things related to the current year. So I am currently filling out an extensive thing about how we're monitoring ARPA funds and how we're making sure the folks we gave the money to are following the rules. As you recall, the 3 outside organizations that got money out of ARPA so far have been Plenty for their porch and some associated things, the PSA, of course, and then also the money that goes with the money to the co-op for the VATI grant. And so I have to outline all that. And all the rest of your funds so far have gone to internal related projects. So we're going through all that, and Chris and then Kim and I following up are also have a cybersecurity type thing that's come from them as well, and a couple other things. Hopefully we'll have something by the end of the month. The DEQ update is oddly tied to the audit a little bit too. I mentioned, I think at the last meeting, that we had some paperwork with DEQ related to our financial ability to respond if anything goes terribly wrong out at our closed landfill. So we have submitted through 2021 all of our paperwork. We can't submit the 2022 yet because that has to include our audit, and part of it has to be completed by our auditors. But we've gone as far as we can, and we've had the auditor and our compliance officer and also the folks from Draper Aiden kind of all in the same circle. Yeah. So we're doing as much as we can there, I think, as I'd say. Those of you that know, I kind of buried the lead here, but we have a huge EDA update, which is the county is actually, for the first time, used its incentive power to offer an incentive which has been accepted and signed off from Hollingsworth and Boys for a $40 million investment to create 25 jobs.
Well-paying job.
Very well-paying jobs. And so we're really excited about that. Mr. Turman and the head of the EDA came in and signed some documents, and we took some pictures, and hopefully we'll maybe can get something in the paper. Hint, hint, and
Yeah, there was something on Southwest. Yeah, there was stuff released this morning. WDBJ.
10. But yeah, it got pushed out by the governor's office, and
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the release did, yeah, you're right, was, even though the signing was Friday, we purposely held the release for the governor's office.
Right.
So
Yeah, so they picked it up and picked it up as well, pushed it. So
that was great. So, and of course, there's obviously state funds involved in that, so that was a really good partnership. And hats off to Ladina for fighting this through for months and months, if not a whole year at least, it feels like. So it's been very challenging, but now it's great. So we're excited about it. Our last 2 updates, last one is related to the Perfect Gift Shop, which was across the way here. This year they have closed up, but they had 437 children that they served that came and were able to come and shop for their parents or caregivers, which is an increase of 102 over last year. So it is a big thing. And so we're really excited about having been able to help them out. And I might ask y'all if we can go ahead and block off the part of the rec building for next year, because we don't know for sure what we're going to do back here, but we know we can tell Jacob to keep it.
it is such a wonderful thing that the Perfect Gift Shop does for children. to be able to gift.
Just keep it rolling.
Yep,
Okay.
it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I'm so happy to hear about 102.
102 more. So
Wow.
yes, yeah, they feel like it was a really good year.
Yeah.
And so I'll actually let Kim tell you the last one, which is the IRS update.
Received a thing from the IRS, and I told her, no, don't give me that. Yeah, but she gave me that, and it was actually through this transition of staff and getting things up to date, 941s and all that stuff, and getting those all completed, we ended up with over a $5,000 refund. So that was
So we have $5,000 from the IRS.
that's crazy.
That is nuts.
Always nice.
Yeah.
So that was
That one
yeah.
and put it in a picture frame.
Serious.
And then I apologized to Jenny. I'm like, okay, you can bring me the mail again. Yes.
Well, we figured we've left you with the kind of a sour taste at the end of the last couple meetings. We put our two best things at the end. Money from the IRS and the perfect gift shop. So, Mr. Chair, with that, that's all that I have. I take that back. This is not a report, but some of you had asked me about the sales tax change. And so, it's 2 pages. Sorry, I didn't get it to staple. But that is the actual bulletin from the
Okay.
state taxation office that explains better than any of the news articles about what it is. And really, it's the state money that's been taken. It's not the local money. But it's not been entirely clear.
There's 2 pages.
So we want to make sure you have that.
So, before you close, I did notice in our correspondence from Jacob,
Mhm.
the questionnaire,
Mhm.
and has that gone out?
It
Or
has.
the-
It has not gone out. We've been, but I wanted y'all to see the direction he was
Yeah.
kind of thinking. So it has not gone out yet because we're trying to figure out exactly what kind of list we would use. And obviously we would push it with social media as well. Yes, please. Yes, that was the part. Yes, that was why it was in there. Thank you. I didn't
Yeah,
catch that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was very well done.
Mhm.
Comprehensive for sure.
Mhm.
And even though it seems like there's stuff in here that doesn't apply, the idea is to find out if it could apply. So I applaud the breadth of this survey, trying to find information out from our citizens about recreation and what they feel they're lacking or would like to see. So thank you. Thank Jacob for that.
Yes, absolutely. Let's see, do we have anything else? Oh, you have also in your correspondence, you have a request that actually came in a while
Yeah.
ago, but it's been kicking around about,
Talk about that one.
On John Bell.
yes,
Susan Huff.
I was
Yes.
going to ask you about that.
yeah. So there's a number of things about that, but we wanted to make sure you saw it and then we'll put it on your agenda for the
That
next
sounds
meeting.
Yeah.
But wanted you to have it.
And our next meeting would be
24th.
the 24th, and are we going to do it at night?
No.
Yeah, that's our regular night meeting, so
Yeah.
we're 24th at 6.
But
And then finally in there, you'll notice also in your correspondence is some work plan from Draper Aiden.
Yeah.
And so at the next meeting, we'll need to talk a little bit about, we probably will need to make some changes to our agreement with them. Because that's beyond the scope of our current contracts, stuff they're working on. Yeah. The old landfill is really expensive.
yeah, we know that. Don't we, Jerry?
Wake
With
up,
that,
Jerry.
I got nothing else.
Phone might be dead.
Mr. Booth, you got one more thing?
Hey, Jerry. Jerry. It's
Here,
yeah. We,
sorry.
I thought you done went to sleep on us. Right.
1935, all that.
Yeah, but you should know about them.
If action on it then, resubmit this to David so he can look at it and compare it to today's requirements.
Right.
Okay. Well, we get Dr. Millsap to forward him a copy of it then.
Oh, oh, okay, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
On the
we
road
can do that.
abandonment.
Absolutely.
And, I think the one in particular, I don't know what that, see, right now, I know they've discontinued it, but I don't know if people are still using that one section or not. That road makes a very sharp turn right there going the other direction. I don't know how they'll look about that, but we probably ought to shoot it by David Clark just to, in the meantime.
Be on the safe side. So,
Yeah. There's probably some other problems that'll arise too.
oh, yeah.
But no, that's all I had.
Well, nobody's wanting to do it, but I'm gonna go ahead and take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion while you got
I'll second.
Motion second, go ahead and call the roll.
On the motion to adjourn, Mr. Turbin,
Yes.
Ms. Cookenbook.
Yes.
Ms. Bechtel,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
and Mr. Booth.
Yes.
All right. I believe you all are adjourned.
We're adjourned to January.